making a video on the occult, which I haven't done specifically on the occult, although everything I do in every way is basically the occult, but or a spiritual dimension. I haven't done it directly on a specific topic for a while, and just be a good day to address this. Don't forget, in that vein, the documentary film I'm making with Jason Robbe concerning the life of Jack Parsons, called Liber Velocity, the apotheosis of Jack Whiteside Parsons, will be released on the Beyond Room 313 channel in about 12 or 13 days. So it'll be there to watch for free. So I'll put a link in the comments down below so you can watch that. Now, today I want to talk about, if you've been following my work, especially on this channel for years, I've been talking a lot about the concept of the digital djinn. This is sort of like a spiritual interface between human consciousness and the artificial intelligence, the internet, the emergent sentient prowess of the World Wide Web and how it affects consciousness. And because of its being a meandering flux realm between human consciousness and the electromagnetic spectrum, and by effect the quantum world, are we in danger of entities trying to use the increasing complexity of the internet regarding its effect on our consciousness in order to target and harvest energy off us and perhaps even possess us? Well, I've been saying for a long time that yes, it's a possibility, and yes, it has happened. Even going back with things like television and so on, it has happened. But this is why the first ever symbol that was transmitted on a television crux tube was the Maltese cross, which is a very well-known esoteric symbol. Now, regarding a recent development that's happened with the AI stuff, okay? Now, a few weeks ago, a very nice lady who's on my Facebook friends page posted something, I think it was on Instagram actually, of a grandmother or something, and a lovely looking woman from the 1940s or whatever. And it was a new application that animates photographs. So you'd have a photograph of a relative that was dead, and they do things like look around, they look up, they blink, they might smile, and what's supposed to be kind of touching and moving in both senses, I found immediately gave me the creeps. Immediately, my initial thing was to go back like that. Was go the intake of breath. This is not good. It's a new system where AI can take photographs and can, using plotting and tracking protocols, can actually move the face of a static photograph and turn it slightly, in a way. And to me, the first thing that popped into my mind, well, is this is just a digital version of when Victorians used to get their dead aunt relatives and dress them all up and take photographs of them fully dressed up with their eyes stitched open and things like that. And you see that was very well done in that film, The Others, with Nicole Kidman, a very good ghost film from about 20 years ago or so. And she goes through a photo album of people who are all dead, and the picture's been taken off them, and some of them were entire families that might have died in a gas leak or something like that, and they're all fully dressed up facing the camera. And this was a kind of a weird, see, this is deep stuff here. That happened at the same time the growth of spiritualism was taking off, where spiritualism was a huge fad, and the late 1800s. And because photography, well, mid-late 1800s, because photography was an emerging technology, people, being who they are, were just drawn to certain macabre aspects to it as well. And because whenever there's a new emerging technological aspect that has an artistic aspect to it, human beings generally, by osmosis and default, tend to explore the dark side of the psyche, for the sake of it. It's just what our psychology is. And that included things like taking photographs of their recently dead ancestors and dressing them up in full clothes. Well, this AI thing had the same effect. That was the initial effect I had from it. But then it was something else. It was more than that. It was more than just It was more just unsettling. It was ghastly. It was the AI thing I'm talking about, the moving photograph. And this really came home to me when some person on Facebook had done it with a photograph of Michael Collins, basically the founder of Ireland, the guy who, freed Ireland from the British Empire. Now, and it was beyond creepy. It was supposed to be this beautiful. Here's a picture of the big fella himself, my hero from history. Some Irish Republican guy posted it, and it was creepy beyond words. Now, this was compounded by the fact that when Michael Collins died, when he was shot in the Irish Civil War, they put his body on display at the Pro Cathedral in Dublin, and people were allowed to visit 24 hours a day and to pay their respects. And there was like four soldiers around him in an open coffin, and he had the tricolour on him, and he was in this kind of thing. And there was a tremendous grief in Ireland. Even the people who killed him were upset about it. They weren't happy about it. The other side, the IRA, basically, what became the IRA, and there was a tremendous sense of like this guy was so young and he had so much promise, and he's dead now, and like just as he freed Ireland, he's dead. He gets killed. He can't enjoy the freedom of Ireland. It was a horrible outcome, and his one of his best friends was the artist John Laverty, and John Laverty's wife, Lady Laverty, is the actual personification of the goddess Era. Her portrait is in the National Gallery, and she used to be on the old Irish money, and a very beautiful woman. But he was a good friend of Michael Collins, and he got permission from the family to paint Michael Collins lying in the coffin. And I read Laverty's biography, and he said that during the night, Collins's dead body would move, open its mouth to say something, open its eyes, turn its head a little bit like this. And he said he really believed, and he says in the biography, I really believed Mick was going to come back and be my friend again, but some other force had taken over the body. And Laverty had realized it was not, it was more than just post-mortal spasms. It was something else was going on. All the emotional grief was poured into this thing, and maybe not. Laverty probably wasn't. Well, Laverty was a member of the Golden Dawn, I think, and so maybe he saw something much more than that. But that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that one of Michael Collins. Then I sat down, had my cup of tea, and started thinking about this. And it started to dawn on me that this AI photo necromancy could be used for, it's definitely, there's C333 is definitely trying to use it to pierce into our world, because it's through the emotional thing. And then I started to think, well, could you use this thing in magical workings? Yeah, sure you could. I mean, you could use it for a lot of black magic stuff. One of the ways you could do it is to take a picture of someone you hated, and it won't work on me because I've already taken precautions against this, haters. And take a picture of someone you hate, and animate them, and as if you would a dead person, and so you've kind of like you've made them dead, you've killed them, and that's one way you could do it. Another thing you could do would be to take. What I did was I didn't show the full thing, but you could take a picture of someone notorious. I took a picture of the serial killer Moira Henley, and I animated it in Instagram. And just as I was experimenting with this stuff, and it is ghastly. It is just like it's not human. There's some other non-human force trying to use this AI moving photograph to get through from the electromagnetic spectrum into our consciousness via our emotions. So if you wanted, you could probably do things like put the sigil of Qurans on, or Beelzebub, or anything Paimon on the forehead of in a Photoshop program, and then digitize that, put them in a big monitor in a dark room, and you could very easily invoke entities very simply. You just have the picture with say Moira Hindley's head constantly moving with the sigil of Paimon on it in a darkened room, and just put yourself in an extreme state of concentration, and you will summon these entities I think a lot more effectively. And I'm not saying do it. I wouldn't do it, but Yeah, I mean that's one of the things. I think there's tremendous black magic elements involved in this AI thing that can be utilized for those who wish to use it. And this is why I think it immediately hit me in a negative way. And a lot of other people said too, "Oh, I don't like that thing. It's kind of creepy. I don't want to see my grandmother moving. It's not natural." Of course, it's not natural. And you have to wonder about the ethics of this as well. It's not your place to dig up your dead grandfather and animate him. It's not. He's gone. This is necromancy. It's a zombie. Don't be making a digital zombie of your loved ones and bringing them to life again. This is why it has a disturbing effect on us. So I would just like to say, I mean, if you want to do this thing, it's your own business. You can do it all your head. But I'm convinced there's a dark negative spiritual dynamic to those AI moving photographs. Especially, don't be doing it to your loved ones and ancestors, because this is a death cult, and a death cult always leads to an infusion of negative energies into yourself, and you can call them entities or whatever, but it will happen. And therefore, of course, if you're working the left hand path and you want to use these kinds of things to invoke entities, that's your own business. But I'm pretty sure it can be done. That AI thing is a very powerful tool for sorcery, and it's I mean, it's a minute it opened up in front of me. I knew it. And so this is the whole chaos paganism thing, which I've been promoting for a while now. That we have to electronic gods and digital quantum gods for a quantum age. By being aware of the dangers of the AI in terms of pathological entities encroaching upon our consciousness from it, we should be aware that we can also use these things for good. And the way the classic thing is, don't look at it. Don't look at it. And it's a clever technology, but it's like the people who work in these places. I can't imagine how awful it might be. Like Boston Dynamics, the ones who make those robot dogs who patrol it's terrifying things, soulless life. And again, that's soulless life. I can't imagine the people who work in these places how empty their consciousness and soul is. So there you go. I would just if you have any friends who are putting these pictures up, or anyone who'd mentioned to you why this stuff feels weird, you can show them this video and say, "Here, this fella in orange is explaining it to you." You can also probably say to people, if you say if your brother animates your dead mother or something, and you're not comfortable with him, you should probably say to him, "I don't like that. It's not. I don't think it's a healthy thing to do to bring Ma back that way. It's unnatural, and it's a bit disrespectful. It's a bit necromancy, zombie-ish. Let her rest. Let her move on." You see, you could also be preventing these people's souls from moving on in their own spiritual destiny. That could be another thing too. There's all kinds of negative pitfalls. Now, it doesn't matter if you're pagan or you're Christian or Muslim, whatever. There's a reason for this. Even the Jewish prohibition on graven idols is based on the fact that they can hold demons. This is not unusual. In fact, in many things within sort of like European folklore, you charge an entity into. That's how voodoo really works. In voodoo, if you want to make a voodoo doll of someone, what you have to do is place a compensatory spirit holding that's also entangled in a kind of a quantum way with the victim. And so when you stick the pins in the compensatory spirit, it acts like an echo and goes back to the real person. And that's how that works. But you can easily protect yourself from all this. Most people who are victims of things like voodoo, or even if this was AI thing, it's because they're not aware of it. That's like psychic attacks. People are going, I just don't know. One day I woke up and I felt like I was being crushed. Well, that's usually you've got someone has a hex on you, and usually by figuring just by the mere notion of saying I'm being hexed, that makes it go. It's the acceptance. But these people go, "Oh, I'm a scientific materialism. There's only no such thing as witchcraft and being hexed," and they all die. And that's because they won't wake up to the full experience of what being a human being is. But be very careful how you use art. Okay, be very careful how you use the internet, be very careful about these things, because there are consequences pertaining to your soul development that you have to be careful with. And every time you see your great grandfather animated in a photograph, some entity out there is harvesting a piece of your soul, and that's why it doesn't feel right. Okay, take care. Love you all. Bye.